So guys, the new Hogwarts Legacy trailer just launched, and today we're actually going to be doing a breakdown of this video. Very cool trailer, guys, and again, we've already done an extensive breakdown on our early gameplay of it. But starting here, at the opening shot, we have the road near Hogwarts with a castle in the distance. A number of students walking along the cobbled path. We also got one of the eclectic signposts depicting some of the various hamlets that dot the Scottish Highlands, as well as Hogsmeade. Now, while we haven't actually seen the number of hamlets we'll be able to visit, we know at least two distinctively different ones from both the official State of the Play trailer and the second gameplay showcase that was with guest host Ben Snow. Now, the names on the sign, Aaron Schreier and Brock Burrow, and this could just be two of many. Now, this is actually one of our favorite shots that we've seen from any of the trailers or promotional work. The scope here is amazing. You see the herbology wing and its greenhouses, the Great Hall, the courtyard, the library, the Quidditch pitch, and even the clock tower, which is actually tucked away on the opposite side of the building. And number 7 here, we're pretty sure that this tower is the center with the curved windows where, spoilers, Dumbledore died. I know, wrong century. Now, if you're excited before, I can tell you right now, walking around the castle is unlike anything we could have ever hoped for. Just saying, guys. Now, moving on. At 5 seconds, we also see our avatar. Again, you have freedom to choose whatever you want for your avatar, but he peeks into the Great Hall, looking a tad bit confused. Not really a whole lot here, but if I had to guess, this is after the sorting, but probably still like one of our first nights at Hogwarts. So essentially just timidly looking around. Now, a small thing that we notice here is on the doors, you can make out the Slytherin emblem in the close-up, as well as the rest of the houses in this wide shot. Again, fellas, the attention to detail is amazing. 7 seconds, we get a real good look at the unauthorized guide to Hogwarts, our field manual that we'll be using throughout the game as essentially our sort of codex and way of tracking quests, spells, and progress. And what's cool about this is now we have confirmation that Deputy Headmaster Matilda Weasley is going to be providing it to us, or at least that's what it seems like. As she says, in light of your unique situation, joining us is a 5th year. We've devised something extraordinary to ensure your success. Now, at 8 seconds, the field guide opens up and explodes upward in an array of light. And if you actually pause it at just the right time, you can see the number of symbols and patterns and cutouts of magical beasts all flying around. But more importantly here, guys, we see a page leaving, which is something that the developers have in game to allow the players to visibly track where they need to go. And you can actually hit up on your D-pad or whatever the equivalent is on PC, and a page actually flits out of the book, flying off and leaving a trail for you to follow to your destination. Actually, during our time at Warner Brothers with our hands-on preview, we were actually told that the way this looks actually changes depending on the house that you're in. So considering that this is the Gryffindor style, I'm actually wondering what other house pages looks like. Now, at 16 seconds, we get an opening shot of the castle courtyard with the Owlery in the distance, which now that we play the game and gotten a tour around Hogwarts, we can tell you that this spot is located between the castle and the Quidditch pitch. As a matter of fact, if you're flying towards the Owlery and around the castle, you actually find a covered bridge that so famously blew up in the Deathly Hallows. Now, in 19 seconds, we're standing in an entrance chamber with a number of various inscriptions around them and a beautiful owl that flies out of the scene. This is our first look at the Transfiguration classroom, headed by Professor Weasley. We're going to talk about that more here in just a minute. At 21 seconds, we get a good look at the herbology wing in one of the greenhouses where Professor Mirabel Garlick is giving instruction. She actually levitates what looks like this weirdly twisted squash or some sort of like skinny pumpkin, I don't know, into a student's hand though. Now, 25 seconds, we actually come back to Transfiguration, and the scene actually opens up with Professor Weasley transfiguring something or conjuring something of sorts. This is like the same sort of animation that we've seen before in gameplay showcases while changing things in the room of requirements, or at least it's very similar. Now, we've long speculated that we'll learn to conjure or change things in the Transfiguration class, which of course makes sense, but it's nice to have it confirmed here. She actually finishes the Transfiguration and a butterfly, or this really pretty moth, begins to fly around. Again, guys, if you know some of these things, feel free to let me know. It's got wings, it's got color, it's one of those. Now, the camera actually pans out and we get a very good look at the rest of the classroom, where even more of the butterflies are flying around, probably from students practicing their Transfiguration spells, and we get a really good look at the room here. A little bland, a tad bit dark, but it's got a number of cages for various types of animals, blackboards with magical scrawlings, and books piled high in the corners. A classic classroom inside of Hogwarts. Now, 27 seconds, our next shot is something absolutely special, as it's the first time we're getting to see Professor Byhowen. Now, we hypothesized that the figure in the cinematic trailer tying the letter to the owl was originally Byhowen, and then just eventually concluded that maybe that was just Madame Mason. Now that we finally get to meet her, this is definitely a magical beast professor. Now, I don't know if the beast was was invisible and she's just showing everyone, or if she's actually conjuring an illusion to demonstrate here. But you can see here with her smooth wand motions, she makes what looks like a unicorn out of light, which is pretty badass, Professor Howin. More like, how in the world did you do that? Am I right? Now, as a fun note here, you actually see one of our future companions standing with her back to us. This is Poppy Sweeting, which you'll recognize if you've seen our exclusive look at the Fire and Vice mission that we got to play at the Warner Brothers Studios. She loves animals, perhaps maybe too much. Now, 29 seconds, we get a look outside on the castle grounds, where a few of the students, Poppy included, are working with Professor Howin. And behind the tall gazebo-like structure appears to be a hut similar to that of Hagrid's. Now, our best guess here is that this is probably where Professor Howin chooses to live. Now, additionally, we also see a magical creature teleport in. Now, we actually have to slow this down a bit to get a good look, but it looks like a Diricall will be appearing in Hogwarts Legacy. Now, if you're looking at this little guy and thinking, man, that just looks like a dodo, that's because the Diricalls and the dodo are actually one and the same, both native to the island Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, and they're believed to be extinct by muggles. Turns out, in the wizarding world, they're not. There's actually a committee of wizards that opted not to reveal to the non-magical world that these animals actually still exist, with also consequences for slaying these creatures. Now, at 32 seconds, we get a look at the Charms classroom, which we've actually seen before from the State of the Play trailer. At 34 seconds, our character uses Accio. Now, presumably for the first time, learning the spell. We actually got to learn the spell when we got to try the game out in LA. No spoilers here, but it's pretty cool. Now, at 35 seconds, we get a real good close look at one of these ugly mandrake roots. What a classic, right? Have those earplugs in. If you remember that scene from the Chamber of Secrets, when they were dealing with these suckers, they are quite a hassle. At 38 seconds, we see Professor Dina Hecat, our defense against the dark arts teacher, which demonstrates the finer points of dueling in our classroom, specifically taking one's opponent by surprise. Really excited to learn more about this professor, as he seems like an absolute beast. At 42 seconds, now we can say for certain that we got our wand from the famous wand dealer. Now, I don't know who this man is, but regardless, this gentleman is clearly a man of taste. Just look at those threads and their embroidery. Maybe an ancestor of Ollivander himself. One of the things we do know is that if you have your Wizard World fan account linked, whichever wand you got there, you can actually transfer it in-game. Additionally, you have the choice of whether to accept that or go through with the game's own choosing process, which personally I'm very curious about. At 45 seconds, the avatar is joined by Deke, the house elf, who is said to help us find the Room of Requirements. Now, the vivarium activates and grows in size, something we've seen a few times in previous trailers, but what we want to point out here is the entrance to the Room of Requirements and the little green flame that you see. We've speculated, or at least we've hoped, that the Room of Requirements would be part of the Flu network for fast travel. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case, considering that's essentially going to be our base of operations, right? At 49 seconds, we get a look at the incredible cavern with these spiny structures forming almost like a tunnel, with a bridge that leads to a vortex-like amalgamation of even more spiny structures. Lanterns hang around that all look a bit like the ancient magic symbol we've seen a number of times in the trailers and marketing, and I can only speculate as to what the significance of this place actually is, guys. Is this under Hogwarts? Maybe? Is it actually somewhere out in the world? Does it have anything to do with Merlin? I don't know. Again, we're in just speculation territory here. At 52 seconds, we encounter in the Three Broomsticks Victor Rookwood, who we've come to learn is a sort of dark magic mob boss. He's got some sort of dealings with Ranrock, leader of the Goblin Rebellion, and he wants something from us. We've heard mention of this encounter before in some of the previous trailers. The question that we have is, can we actually work for him or with him? Maybe get rid of him and take over his business. Maybe just become the most evil wizard in all of history. These are the kind of things I want to do. At 57 seconds, we see our character walk up to the dais and begin to reshape into the symbol for ancient magic. Now, this big giant statue looks like its eye is shining a light down onto it, maybe to activate it. I don't know, but this is very cool. Now, at the 1 minute mark, we see the moment our wand chooses us. And this is actually a really cool moment. At 1 minute and 6 seconds, we can hear our character actually explaining the concept of ancient magic. And this is what we're going to have access to throughout the game. And this is a really interesting look at some of the ancient architecture and the book that's actually floating above the dais. Now, the book looks a lot like the book that was located in the ending for the gameplay showcase. In fact, I think it's the same one that we get pulled right into at the back of the headmaster's office. Maybe a port key, perhaps something else. At 1:10, we see here a statue of a knight tapping its sword down and sending out a sort of pulse of energy. And it signals the start of what looks to be a fight. The room itself is very dark, but then you have these torches light up. This definitely has like an ancient magic puzzle feel to it, or at least an encounter of sorts. I'm also getting vibes of like the Sorcerer's Stone during the chess match with Ron, but very cool stuff here. At 1:16, we've actually seen these clips before in a bunch of different trailers, culminating in the finisher on the troll in Hogsmeade. Nothing really new here. At 1:23 though, this is akin to the knights that we saw earlier with the ancient magic encounter, rising up out of the ground, and if I had to guess, probably a sentinel of some kind guarding something, especially with the way it attacks Ranrock and his goons. Now at 1:27, someone uses a spell to place a pillar of stone across a gap, and it's presumably our companion Professor Eleazar Fig, who actually teaches magic theory, allowing us to flee from a group of goblins that seem to be infected with darkness, or at least some sort of corruption. Now at 1:31, you can see a small group of dark wizards, poachers specifically, standing their ground against a white-winged hippogriff. And then the scene cuts to a battle between goblins, as well as a large sword-wielding thing. To me, it actually looks like some sort of defense mechanism being powered by magic. At 1:38, our character actually sneaks up on an underground monster cockfight. That's right. We've actually seen this before in our hands-on experience, the mission Fire and Vice. We didn't take the time then to really dive into what we were seeing, but now that we actually get a look at the two dragons, you can see they have these red magical collars around their neck. Now at 1:41, our character and Professor Fig are walking along a seaside area of the island, and Fig repairs a stone pathway. Also, nothing really new here. Seen this before. Fig uses Reparo, and we look sexy. At 1:43, Victor Rockwood, which is one of the antagonists of the game, shows up, and it almost looks like we have a boss encounter against him here. I'm actually really excited to see whatever kind of magic he actually throws our way. And again, if we take the RPG elements here, maybe we can work with Victor. I don't know. Maybe this was always bound to happen. At 1:50, we see Natty, and she's seen running after, presumably, a recently freed hippogriff, and she nearly runs herself off the edge. She gets picked up though by a brightly colored white-winged hippogriff, and it actually looks like the creature that Poppy Sweeting so lovingly refers to as Highwing. And you can even see the poachers running after the archway behind them, but yeah, looks like Highwing to us. At 1:55, we see our character exploring the wilderness on our broomstick, and then suddenly partaking in a duel against some dark wizards, showing off a counter with Protego. At 2 minutes and 1 second, we actually saw this before in our hands-on preview of the mission Fire and Vice from the end of the mission. And at the end of the trailer, Headmaster Black and Deputy Headmaster Weasley are raising their goblets, toasting the students in the Great Hall, probably beginning the new year after the sorting ceremony. So guys, that is your Hogwarts Legacy trailer breakdown. We're excited. We've got early access to it, and we'll be streaming it live on our Twitch. Feel free to come by, guys, if you want to watch us play. We're going to be deep diving in this hard. There's so much to explore in this game, guys, and I can't wait to do it with you. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.